Lightning doesn't strike twice, but then again, someone up there doesn't want Cambridge to be promoted. Stoppage time agony again sees United slip out of the top three, but are we increasingly letting destiny slide out of our hands? There's definitely some irony to conceding from crosses on Easter, and it leaves us with just the 2 points from the weekend when it should have been so much, much more. Hello, and a very warm welcome to Under the Abbey Stand. This is the Review Pod. My name is Jordan Warland. I was hoping it'd be so much better than what it is going to be in this pod, but I'm two-manning it tonight. Got my friend and yours, Tom Walker, with us. Tom, I said I wasn't going to lose my head in this pod, so that frees you up to take that mantle if you want it.
Yeah, thanks for that. Might be needed. Yeah, hello darkness, my old friend. It's happened again. I can't believe it. Yeah, for those who aren't Coconut Tier members, me and Julian did a review of the Swindon game and a preview of the Cheltenham game. So that's what you missed out on. For those of you who are Coconut Tier members, you're going to hear basically the same thing again. Maybe slightly more negative, I'd say, but
angrier. I think I'm more angry compared to after Thursday.
I think the hall pass to allow me to lose my head is well received. I'm happy about that because obviously we were chatting just before we got to start recording. I have to say I was in quite a foul mood on Monday evening. One that I've not felt for a long time. Owing to Cambridge United performances or results or happenings or moments or instances. But yeah, it really left me quite cold, I have to say, or quite hot, I guess, quite angry.
This is right up there in back-to-back bad events happening. And I don't mean back-to-back as in, like one season then the next season, because I'm thinking of the Borough away games. But I think the worst back-to-backs I can think of, was it the end of Calderwood where we lost, 4-0 back-to-back? That was let's see if I can make it more glum for you to start the pod. But
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's such a weird feeling, say lightning strikes twice, but to have the same bad outcome happen in consecutive games, let alone the fact that there's only a couple of days between them and not like a full week like the normal season. But yeah, I'm just sort of struggling to think if I can think of any worse examples or even some good examples in my time following United. But yeah, that end of Calderwood one with the back-to-back, I don't know if it was back-to-back or definitely back-to-back home games where we lost something like 4-0, 4-1.
Yeah, you would probably have to concede that it's not quite that bad.
It is. Hey, there you go. You're not losing the head. There's some positivity.
I'm getting there.
Not as bad as Calderwood. Tick. Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
Is this where we peak? Is this where the pod peaks?
That's really the least you expect, though, isn't it? No, I do know what you mean. I mean, to carry on with the sort of Easter references, I'm sure there'll be a couple of crucifixions for us.
I thought you were going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and like this is really going to prove it. I'm not. I sort of know the outline of the Bible, so I don't know all the meat on the bones and all the details and all that sort of stuff. I know that the guy died and the guy came back to life, and it felt like on Monday we had risen, and then they used the crucifix to batter us back to death in the 90th minute. Something like that. There's a pun, there's a joke, there's a reference in there somewhere. So take the dots and just try and join them up if you can. But I think you know what I'm getting at. We're all rather unhappy.
Tom, I already mentioned the coconut tier earlier in the pod. If you're sat there wondering what the hell that is, there's some godly stuff on there. Head to undertheabbeystand.com to find out more about what a mere £5 a month can get you extra from the UTAS boys. Go on then, Tom. You and I, two-manning it. Let's dive in. Let's start by checking in on your general feelings. How are you feeling if, what was it, 48 hours later, 24 hours later, I've lost track. So it's not even 48, is it? How are you feeling and how does it compare to Thursday night? Because I think there is a big difference between Monday and the end of the game Monday versus Thursday and the end of the game Thursday.
Yeah, I think Thursday night, and for those that haven't listened to our review, our summary was pretty much as you'd expect from Thursday night. We were excellent. We couldn't quite get it across the line. We deserved more. If you play like that in the rest of your games, you get promoted. That sort of sentiment, which I think is fair, and I think I stand by. That said, I still came out of that game pretty unhappy, obviously, because we conceded late, but just because it felt like we dropped points in a fashion we just didn't need to, really, more than anything. But having said all of that, I think there was a level of positivity about what we were saying and what we sort of thought about, like particularly individual performances, a collective performance as well as a team. I thought a lot of the decisions that the manager made were good, and we were saying, look, like what would you have done differently to avoid the outcome on Thursday night? And I think we were kind of just agreed that probably not a lot. Like, if you're judging anything and saying that you'd have done this differently or that differently, you are kind of judging it based on outcome rather than like the process of what you actually would have done at the time. Monday, in many ways, even though the outcome is almost identical, frustratingly similar, like the sentiment and the thoughts that you come away from it with almost could not be more different, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's
The Thursday night game, it felt it was poised at a certain point, and you're like, you could maybe take these players off, but it'd be too risky. But on Monday, that seemed like there were opportunities to mix it up, change, change personnel, use the subs. We'll talk about the actual subs that he did do, even though a big argument there that he got that wrong. But yeah, sorry, Tom, you were saying.
Well, I think it's just the fact that from the manager through to the players, individually, performances, certain themes that have been a theme, I guess, of the last few weeks that came true on Monday. There's just so many negatives to pick through. And I guess if you look at it in the overall picture of are we going to get promoted, yes or no, I think that you'd have to say that what happened on Monday, even though like the result and the outcome is exactly the same statistically, like we draw the game, we draw 1-1, what it does to your hopes or your ambitions to actually finish in the top three is just really damaging, I think. And as much as it's damaging for us, I think it'll be a real boost to other teams, because you'll look at what happened on Thursday, you'll look at what happened on Monday, and teams will deduce that we're just quite simply bottling it. That might be a bit too far. I think it's really just a simplistic thing to say that we've dropped points, therefore we're bottling it. But when you can see stoppage time equalisers in consecutive games in that fashion, in games that, against Cheltenham particularly, they didn't have a shot on target. We've drawn the game 1-1. Like,
Yeah.
we're finding ways to lose points. And at that point, you do have to question the mental strength. You have to question the way that the games are being managed. And you do have to question, quite simply, are we good enough to get promoted? And if you're chucking points in the way that we have recently, you kind of draw the conclusion that maybe not, to be honest.
I'm going to skip to a question a little bit further down the running order because it feels like a good time to bring it up, because you're talking about the outlook. I want your gut feeling, Tom. How do you see right now? How do you see the season finishing? How do you see it happening for Cambridge?
I mean, I think I want to preface everything I'm going to say in the next, whatever it is, 45, 50 minutes, however long we go on for. And at the start of it, I want to say that it's a phrase I really hate saying, but I do think it rings true. If you had said at the start of the season that we'd be sat here having just come out of the Easter weekend, and we're sat in a position where our destiny is totally in our own hands, we're sat in a position where we could and possibly should go on and win automatic promotion and still have a shout of winning the league, I think you all probably would have been pretty happy with that. I'm mostly pretty positive on the way the team and the club's been managed this season. I'm mostly pretty positive on a large proportion of the players that we've got, and I'm pretty happy with the way that things have gone to this point. So that's all of that. But having said that, I think what the weekend's done is it's really just taken off a shine of kind of positivity, really. A lot of the things that you feel you can really hang your hat on why you believe that we'd go on and achieve what we want to achieve, which is automatic promotion, and the reason why you think we'd be good enough to do that and why we might go and do that is things like, a confidence in our ability to shut games out, a confidence in our ability to just be resolute and, just get things across the line and just find a way, basically. And this has really dented my belief in that, to be honest. Then you look at other teams and the fact we've actually dropped out the top three. All right, we've got the game in hand, but that game in hand is now it's a real game in hand now, isn't it? Like whereas before,
The
if there's
pressure
a
on that game, yeah.
yeah, like if there's obviously a bit of leeway and maybe we're a point or two clear going into it, and you're thinking, well, would it be all right just to draw that game in hand, or would it be right to draw against Notts County? Those sorts of thoughts, they totally lose your head. Yeah, it's a really tricky one. I think what it's done for my overall sort of thoughts on things is just really, really bring things down from being really relentlessly quite positive throughout the season to really feeling like I think this weekend might have put maybe not a terminal end to our hopes for that promotion. Clearly not. Like clearly, there's still a long way to go. But my God, it feels a long way off.
I know what you mean about that USP of ours, being able to find a way, shut teams out. A couple of months ago, winning those games by 1 goal margins or 1-0, it didn't seem to be anywhere near as nervy or or doubtful as it is now. And I guess maybe a factor there is just the time of year that it is. It is the end of the season. We are starting to be a little bit more leggy, a little bit more tired. Maybe that's the thing. But yeah, I know what you mean about sort of losing the faith in that USP, and hopefully there is something there that we can find that tweaks it or adds a new dimension to it. For me, whether the gut feeling of whether we do it or not, still a little bit too early for me to answer that. I think the Notts County game is going to be the one for me. And considering I'm on the preview pod and the review pod, you people listening will hear all about my feelings on that one. I guess the other thing that I keep coming back to is where's the heads of the players right now? Where's the mindset? Have they lost it? Have they started to think, oh God, we're bottling this here. We can't get across the line. Are the leaders in the dressing room going to stand up? Is Neil Harris going to whip them into shape? And I want your thoughts on that, Tom, because we've actually had a question come in from Lee. She's asked, has the pressure become too much for some of the players, or have the last two results come at a time which gives the players the opportunity to have the kick up the backside and turn it around?
Well,
Really hope it's that latter one.
yeah, I mean, it's really hard, and it's probably not that helpful to just basically speculate about what may or may not be going on in the heads of players and the heads of the manager. Have they kind of lost their heads a little bit? I don't know, maybe. I've never been in that position. I will never be in the position of a professional footballer trying to see a promotion over the line. So it's quite hard for me to put myself into that headspace. But if you look on the evidence of what's happened, you'd have to say they're struggling with it at the very least. If you look at the way that we conceded the goal at Cheltenham and just to kind of fast forward ahead to that a little bit, like it's crazy decision making from Eastwood, and it's a moment of nothing that's resulted in us conceding a goal. And you're right, it's that time of the season. Funny, pressure does funny things to people and does funny things to teams at the top and bottom end of the table in a positive and negative way. And we've seen that ourselves when we pulled a ridiculous run out of the end of the season in the Great Escape year. That sort of stuff can happen. Things that you don't expect, things that you might not have seen in February, you see happen in April. And that's kind of where it's at for me. What I will say is, it'll be very interesting to see. Let's say, for example, against Notts, a pretty realistic scenario is that we're 1 goal up in that game going into stoppage time. I mean,
I'm leaving. I'm off. I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is that the nerves from the stands start to seep in a little bit, and I'm no psychologist. I'm not an expert, as I've said. I've not been in the position of a professional footballer in this situation. I never will be. But you cannot tell me that if we're a goal up going into that game, going into approaching full time in that game, 89, 90, 91 minutes, whatever it is, you cannot tell me that it won't at least be in the back of every single player's head. We've done this very recently. We've done it twice before. We've chucked it away. Are we going to do it again? So that's where it gets interesting for me. Interesting is a weird word because I hate it. But yeah, there's definitely a bit of that.
Well, you got to think if you're a Notts County player as well, right? If you're 1-0 down, you're going into stoppage time. You got to be thinking there's a chance here, given what's gone on over the last couple of games. Elsewhere in the league, MK Don's wobbling. Does that just go to show that this isn't that easy a part of the season and things don't always go as you predict? Admittedly, on Monday they had a much tougher operation, and we did going away to Oldham, who are very much in form, but you know their form over the last few games has dropped right off. Do you get any comfort in that? That's sort of showing that that does happen to teams up the top this time of the year.
Not really, to be honest. Maybe it's what happens when you're quite dialed into what's happening in one club in front of you.
Hmm.
Firstly, you start paying a little bit less attention to those around you. But like, I think with the situations that we put ourselves in, like you just have to look at yourself. Like you just have to look at like what are we doing, and if you look at it in a pretty believable but alternative universe where we picked up 6 points over Easter and we hadn't conceded those late goals, like we're basically up. like we're sort of there or thereabouts really with like a game in hand. And
You're going into the Bromley game chasing the title, really.
yeah, well, pretty much that, because you'd find yourself on 78 points at the moment, 3 points behind Bromley with a game in hand, still with them to play. And I just like obviously now we have to look at other teams around us, and now we have to look at what they're doing, but that's less so in a kind of, well, it can happen to anyone sort of way, and more like we need you to drop points because otherwise we're not going to achieve what we want to. But yeah, I think like for me, it's just kind of all on us. I don't find really any comfort in what other teams have or haven't done over the weekend that's just gone. I just find it intensely frustrating that we've done what we've done, really. And if we come out of that Cheltenham game with the win, I still would be a little bit disappointed because of what happened in the Swindon game. But
Yeah,
the
I know what you
fact that
mean.
we've chucked two more points away in such similar fashion is almost unbearable. To be honest, almost unbearable.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The general feelings for me compared to the Thursday night game or the end of the match feeling is it's just one of anger. I think on Thursday I echo that sentiment that definitely Julian, but also yourself said on the review show around, just feeling like it was a little bit unfair. Didn't feel right. It wasn't meant to be. But yeah, Monday, very angry that we didn't get it across the line, and we'll touch on some of the reasons for that in a moment. But before that, Tom, want to get your thoughts on Mr. Harris post game. He said it's firmly come away from us, and we've got to take it back. How do you think he must be feeling after watching that on Monday? Because we'll talk about his substitutions and some of his decision making at due course throughout the pod. But there's got to be an element where he sat there thinking, individual mistakes here are costing me or costing us.
Yeah, I think that would be passing the buck more than just a little bit, to be honest. Um, it'd be right to think that. It'd be right to think that it's individual mistakes that have cost him, or cost us. If you look at the Swindon game, it's a breakdown in communication. It's poor organisation at the back between two players who should do better and have done better pretty much all season in Mayer and Gibbons. And you look at the goal that we conceded at Cheltenham, and it's just Eastwood. It's just a bit of a howler, really. But yeah, having said that, I mean, like, post-match comments are something that some people read a lot into, some people don't. In this instance, I don't think they're as important as what happened before them during the game. I think Harris will know deep down that his decision making has been arguably the key reason that we dropped points there. And yeah, I think like you talk about individual mistakes from players, but I think as much as anything, it's kind of on him a little bit, really. I think particularly more so in the Cheltenham game, I don't really have too many complaints, too much to criticise of how the Swindon game went, other than the fact we couldn't quite finish our chances in the way that we should have done. But yeah, the Cheltenham game for me, if you're looking to apportion blame, there's probably three places I'm putting it. Harris is probably top of the list, I think.
We are recording this Tuesday evening. We're going to try and get it out Tuesday evening as well. Tom, if I told you that Shrewsbury have just gone one up at Bromley, does that make your mood better or worse?
It's back you on.
No, it makes it worse, man. It makes it worse. Oh, anyway, tough team, Shrewsbury. Here's a question from Steve. Steve asks, 14 draws this season, 8 of them away from home. Grimsby, Tranmere, Salford, MK, Gillingham, Accrington, Walsall and Cheltenham. I'm imagining you saw most of those live, Tom. In most of those, we've been set up differently from home games and been so passive. Is Harris trying not to lose rather than trying to win? What's your take on that one? Because it feels like that's definitely a thing earlier in the season. Do you feel like that's changed the latter parts of the season and during that good run of form since sort of October time? And has it reverted back?
It's hard because I think like within those games, there's a lot of different there's a lot of really different scenarios. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable sort of categorizing Cheltenham and Tranmere or Accrington and Tranmere, for example, in the same category as as each other. Because if you look at a game like Tranmere away, that was quite evidently us going there with very, very little intent on trying to win the game. Whereas I think in probably pretty much all the other ones, maybe save Salford, where obviously because Salford are a decent attacking side, the emphasis was really on stopping them, which is fair enough and understandable. And I think we all got that and we all accepted that at the time. I think all of the others we've made a reasonable attempt to try to win those games, and arguably some of them we should have done. Walsall is probably the outlier because that's probably the only game in there that we've really, really played poorly.
And dropped off a lot second half, didn't we?
Yeah,
I think you say Monday. Maybe the drop off is nowhere near as dramatic as Walsall, but it felt like Cheltenham were more in it second half. So I don't know if that's credit to them rather than us dropping away. But having said that, obviously we did still have two good opportunities to win the game second half.
yeah. So yeah, look, I think it's a really tricky one to analyze with Harris. I think like what gets lost in if you just look at that set of 8 games that we've drawn is the fact there's also a lot of games that we've won away from home. Some of them in pretty convincing style, like Oldham, for example, where we put on a really decent attacking display in the second half, and games like Colchester as well, where we were pretty good right at the start of the season. So you don't just want to kind of group everything in together and trying to come up with a conclusion that fits basically every single example. I would say that more recently the intent is to win the game. I think you can see that. I think that at Cheltenham in the first half, particularly, we were the better team. We were a dominant team without creating loads of chances of any quality. But the intent was there to try and win the game. We put ourselves in a great position to do it. The difference that I think is that now we don't really seem to have a really set idea of how we're going to go out and win the games. So if you look at like a Newport, for example, away, a game that we did win, and Oldham, the blueprint is basically there. It's like you keep it really tight until about the hour mark. Maybe you make a couple of subs, maybe you don't, but you kind of turn the you basically turn the screw a little bit around the hour mark, and you back that in the end your quality will show and it'll win through, and that's basically what happened there. Whereas we don't seem to have that sort of blueprint, for at the moment, and we're struggling to kind of make it work. Part of that might be other teams have cottoned onto it a little bit and have found a way to stop us from doing that, because obviously it sounds so idealistic to just be like, well, we'll keep it tight for a bit, then we'll go win the game late on. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's totally a setup thing. I think the reason that we drop points at Cheltenham, and big part of the reason we drop points at Cheltenham, is because of a negative approach to managing the game. But I don't think that's a thing of how we set up.
I was just going to ask the blueprint that you mentioned there. Keep it tight for an hour, then be more expansive. Do you think the challenge on Monday was the fact that we got the goal, not even early, but in the first half? Do you think that's changed the thinking? Like, why not on the hour mark? Go more expansive. Change forwards, etc. Even if you're winning the game, do you think it's the fact that we were ahead that's kind of sort of changed the outlook there?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I totally get that. When you're a goal up, there's obviously something to protect there, isn't there? And even just subconsciously, I think you're not thinking too much about. Well, I suppose sometimes you are, but for the most part, you're not thinking as much about going and making it 2 as you are as keeping it 0 at the other end. So I was just chuckling out the idea that Kai's 34th minute goal could be categorised as scoring too early.
Yeah.
Not exactly Luke Shaw against Italy, is it? But no, I think it's just a problem of execution. At this point, I think we're thinking too big picture. We're thinking too much on like You know, how is he approaching this? How is he approaching that? It's just poor execution all round. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Before we touch on the game then and some more details on the game, last bit on sort of your general feelings towards the run in now and what does Easter mean for you and your take on our form. Are you thinking we've still got it in our hands, still feel that we're in the driving seat, or do you think it is now, might have to settle for the playoffs? How, where are you on that scale?
Well, look, I think like for all the the chat so far, and trust me, will continue to be quite negative. Um, like you have to take a step back and you have to look at where we are, and even though the fixtures that we've got coming up look,
Tough.
but tough, yeah, but pick whatever sort of word you want to use for massive, large, humongous, enormous, extraordinary, like whatever you might want to use, like it'll apply because there's some really big games in there, and as much as they look a little bit daunting, you have to look at it and think like in terms of our chances to go on and win automatic promotion, still totally in our own destiny, and probably a lot of people would back us to do it. So I think it's way too early, and it'd be far too reactionary to write off and just go, "Now the playoffs will have to do." For sure, there's a little bit of me thinking that we've missed a sizable opportunity to really go and kind of hammer it home. But I would also say that there's a long way to go yet, and we are where we are on merit, I guess. So there's every reason to think that we might still be able to find a way.
Mr. Walker, there's been a second goal at Bromley
Has there?
for the away side. Yeah,
Has there really?
it has indeed. I was going to ask you, do you believe in the PPG profit? Because he has Notts County second, us third, and MK Dons dropping out. That would
I'll
be
find
lovely,
out.
wouldn't it, Tom? Promoted on the 82 points, which would mean Caspar was correct. So you'd have to live with Caspar reminding us of that all summer. But I think I could live with that.
But before I answer, I'm going to tell you some really bad news, Jord.
Oh,
The
it's not been disallowed, is it?
Yeah, apparently Marquis for Shrewsbury had the ball in the net, but the flag is up, so it's still 1-0.
Ah,
More as we get it, of course. Um, I'll take that.
what an
I'll
awful
take
pod
that.
this is.
That's what I'll say. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. I mean, in many ways, that's kind of the ideal scenario, is it? That MK miss out and we get in. So yeah, that's fine. But at the moment, you can just throw it all up in the air and see how it lands, and I wouldn't be none the wiser.
Should we talk about the game in a little bit more detail then?
Yeah, let's do it. I've got plenty of thoughts.
Well, let's start with the first half. I would say, obviously, we didn't reach the levels of the Thursday night. Didn't weren't as quick, weren't knocking it as about as nice, but I think it was a decent enough showing first half, and I think we were good value for being 1-0 up. What was your take on the opening 45 minutes and the Kai half volley as well? Because that was a nice finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was controlled without being impressive, to be honest. I think you could tell which team needed a win and which one maybe didn't quite as much. I felt like we did a lot of the running. I thought we looked the better side, just marginally. We weren't good by any stretch of the imagination. It certainly wasn't as good as the first half was just a few days before against Swindon. But yeah, look, we obviously did enough. We found a way, which is something that we'll keep referring to. But we did find a way in that first half, and yeah, I don't think anyone would really have any complaints about how the sort of first half went and how it ended, and the fact that we went in a goal up. I just think at points it was maybe a little bit laboured, a little bit scrappy, like we didn't create much from open play. It is maybe one criticism, but yeah, I think at this point in the season, you don't really care how they come. You just want to see us winning games, right? And I think the first half was kind of exactly what you wanted it to be. We looked like the better side and we made it count. Just
Yeah, I agree. I think the goal was a nice little move. That sort of crossfield sort of ball to the back stick. We've been doing that a lot this season, and some more joy from it. And it was a controlled sort of finish from Kai. I think there was a chance maybe a few minutes before, whether it was him or I think it was Kai who absolutely levered it and went over the bar. It might have been Ben Knight, but yeah, it was nice a few moments later to see someone get a good connection to it. And yeah, I think we were good value for being 1-0 up at half time. At that point, all going pretty nicely across the division. Second half, then, mate, there's a few, I guess, bullet points from this point to, well, from this half to talk about. I guess the first one was easing up a bit and Cheltenham sort of getting into the game a bit more. I don't know. Was that noticeable from the away end? And could you sort of pinpoint why you think that might have been?
I can pinpoint the fact we switched to four at the back in the second half. It's something that we continue to do, and I think we've looked worse every single time we've done it, for the most part. I thought we looked sort of controlled against Salford when we made that switch, but we certainly weren't better for it. We certainly weren't better for it against Cheltenham. I just felt that, again, like I'm not sure the shape or the sort of approach was necessarily the main problem. I think we were just really sloppy in the second half. Like the amount of times the ball would go straight out of play, or pass would be overhit, or people would be in offside positions, or not in the positions they're supposed to be at all. You kind of lost count with it, and you just felt like that's where the kind of speculation or the question marks over like mental strength and how in the game are they start to come from, because teams that are truly on it and truly locked in and drilled in probably don't make quite as many basic mistakes as we did. And I just thought we were just sloppy, yard off the pace. All right, there were certain instances where we certainly one or two instances where we should have done better, but maybe could look to extending the lead. But it always kind of had the feeling of a game where if you don't step it up a little bit, you're going to give them a bit of a foothold back into the game. We don't need to be doing that. And unfortunately, that's kind of exactly what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Second game in a row, not able to find a second goal. Not as many chances or as peppering of the goal as it was compared to the Swindon game, but there were a couple of good opportunities. First one wouldn't have counted because the offside flag went up against Appere. A terrific reactionary save. Possibly some questions about why he's not found the back of the net. Only to later in the half, Appere miss an even better opportunity. You've been mulling this one over all day, haven't you, Tom? That free header from 6 yards out. How are you feeling?
Yeah, we're paying the price at this point for not having a striker who's good enough or available enough. Make no mistake about it, and for those that haven't seen it, it's a free header. He's about 5 yards out, and he's not even, just not scored. He's put it in almost the totally opposite direction from the goal. It's not a particularly difficult one. I thought at the time maybe it come at him quite quickly. It hasn't. I think for any striker of any club competing for what we're competing for, it simply goes in the back of the net. And I think there's other strikers at the club as well. Someone even like a Kachunga, for example. If you put someone like that in that position, I'd probably back they'd score a goal. Yeah. It simply has to go in the back of the net. Like it just has to. And we've kind of ummed and ahed around it a lot and talked about like what do you do with the striker situation. We've used phrases like doesn't quite stick enough, all that sort of stuff. The fact of the matter is, I just don't think Louis Appere is quite good enough. I think we can look at January, we can look at the summer as moments where we could and we probably should have improved that part of the pitch. And God knows we've talked enough about our lack of quality centre forward options costing us that you feel like we just shouldn't be in this position again. Talking about the fact that if we had that striker, if we had this striker instead of Appere, you probably win this game, you win that game, you find yourself 2-0 up at Cheltenham. But like it's true, like it just is. You look at what are his qualities in the side, and I'll caveat this and add the balance that he has won promotion as a regular starter in a team before with Northampton. He's been a very regular feature of a team in Cambridge now. We obviously find ourselves in a really good spot to go on and be promoted. Probably Appere will be in the team for the rest of the season. So there is that, and to say that he's just simply not good enough to be part of a promotion winning team clearly isn't a fair criticism. But my God, it feels it at the moment.
He played out wide for Northampton, didn't he? He wasn't sort of straight down the middle, number 9 for them in their promotion.
Might have done. I mean, look. I think there's a few problems. Some of them are just like physical limitations, like not quite being able to compete in the air, and that's something that's been apparent and even talked about quite openly ever since he signed for us. That he's not that sort of striker who's going to win loads in the air. all right, I can get on board with that. I'm fine with that. And then you hear things like, well, he's just like not like a scoring striker. I'm thinking, well, like what sort of striker are you then? Because you don't win headers, you don't always occupy the back three or the back four, whatever it is, particularly well. Yeah, you run a lot and you work hard, but what else do you actually offer? Even the one where he's offside is like a good example. Firstly, why are you offside?
Yeah.
Secondly, even though it's offside, why isn't it going in the back of the net? Like I don't think he knew it was offside at the time, and I think what it comes down to is just a real dire lack of any proper goal scoring instinct. Like if he was a lion in the Serengeti, he'd be hungry because he'd be having like gazelles beating him to his evening meal and stuff like that. Like it's just not good enough, really. Like it's just really not. I struggle to kind of analyze it any other way. Like when the moment comes, you want people to stand up and be counted, and he's just missed too many opportunities for me. And look, we can talk about the one at Cheltenham has been a real sitter that he's missed, and it definitely is. And I definitely think that probably behind the substitution, I think that's probably the moment that really cost us the game above and
Mhm.
beyond, any Eastwood mistake. Because frankly, if the game's 2-0 at that point, then Eastwood can do whatever he wants, and it doesn't really matter too much. It doesn't carry much gravity. Um, it's just like there's so many occasions where not just is he like missing fairly straightforward chances, so like a lot of times he's just not in the right place at all. Like there were so many times against Swindon on Thursday night where the ball be flashed across the face of the goal or near the 6 yard box or on the penalty spot or something like that. He's like behind the play. And it's like, what are you doing? Like you're a centre forward, you're a centre forward for a team that are creating chances, and you're nowhere to be seen. When they do come, you can't convert them. It's
There's
just, it's just simply not good enough, really.
there was a moment on this in the Swindon game, and for fairness, I think he had a good game against Swindon. I echo what you said in the review show where you basically said similar, but there was a point, I don't know if you remember this, second half, does well to win the ball, slips out wide to Ben Knight. Ben Knight sort of gets into the box a little bit wide and sort of pulls it back across the goal. Apere's nowhere near. And it's like you started that move. You set him off. Like
There's no instinct, Jord.
anticipate that the person you just pass it to is either going to shoot or cross.
And
It's
look,
mad.
And look, we're probably already at the point now where, like, yeah, like we can focus in and we can really magnify what a Louis Apre's weakness is. And I think as a centre forward at this level, there's plenty of them to go at. But then you're like, well, what do you do instead?
Well, that was going to be my question. Yeah.
Like,
How'd you fix this?
what are the alternatives? Well, one of them is use Burn Lavery, and I mean, we sat before the Swindon game and talked about the idea of is now the time to like sort of stick or twist with Lavery. Before the Swindon game, I was like, probably you just stick and you just keep it going. 'Cause there's still plenty of games to go. We're in a position where we don't really need to just yet. I'm thinking now, like, are we better off just starting with Lavery against Notts and just like if he pulls up, he pulls up. Like it's just one of those things. The other option is Nevitt, who quite evidently is not rated highly enough by anyone, really. Least of all Harris, because he's just not starting games. He's not even coming on in games. Like he
Grand
came
total
on,
of 2 minutes over Easter. Yeah.
yeah, came on. I think just after Swindon scored their equaliser and came on again just after Cheltenham scored their equaliser. I would say to no effect, but then I guess the argument is, well, what effect can he have in about 5 combined minutes across two football matches? Kachunga's a name that I've mentioned. I mean,
We had a
you kind of
question. Yeah, we had a question about Kachunga. There's also been people saying, do you consider recalling Monday? Like, where are you on? Yeah, where are you with these sort of ideas and these thoughts? Do you think that's too reactionary, or are you open to it?
I think the reality is it's probably going to continue as it's been now for the last few weeks. I think
Well,
I think
yeah, I wanted to come back to that Lavery point because do you not now think? I mean, I guess it's catch 22, isn't it? But there's a part of me that's thinking, well, if you burn Lavery, what happens if you are in the playoffs and you've got hopefully another 3 games to play? But then I guess you could turn that back on me, Tom, and say, well, if you do play him now, you don't go into playoffs because you get enough points. So I guess it's yeah, catch
yeah,
twenty-two.
a bit of a catch 22 we call it. I suppose the argument is that for the playoffs, I believe we might have all our loan players back, which means that a certain Ryan Loft might be available to us.
I did message Matt Caspel earlier asking what his thoughts were on the potential redemption arc of Lofty coming back for for the playoffs, and he just simply replied, "I hate it." So
Yeah, fair
not,
enough. Say no
not
more. Yeah, absolutely fair enough. Case closed. Um,
Does Lofty
yeah,
score
look,
that header? I think Lofty scores that header.
I don't fucking know what Lofty does, mate. That's a and let's be very clear. If Ryan Loft is the answer, then I don't know. I don't want to know what the question was. But look, I think realistically, we're what 41 games into the season. We're not going to start changing things drastically now. Apre will probably start against Notts County. He'll probably start all of our remaining games unless he gets injured or like seriously his performance levels drop off. So yeah, I think for me, like the alternative is you start Lavery. I don't really see the use in starting Nevic because I think it's pretty clear that he's just not rated, and probably isn't a huge upgrade on what Apre is or can offer. Lavery's the obvious one who just gives you at least that cutting edge, that bit of instinct, which I think is what's lacking. I suppose that if you want to look at other options, like we did start with Kai up front a few times in Harris's first spell with us. Maybe we can try that again, but I highly doubt it. I think Apre's Harris's man, and yeah, you just got to hope that if a moment like that can come again, which it probably will, because we're a good team and we've got 5 games left, and he's our number 9. You just hope he can this time convert. But yeah, I won't hold my breath.
Can't help but think back to that Kouassi cameo against Gillingham that rather wasn't needed. Um, you've touched on this, but we've had a question from James, so let's have it out here. Has a poor January window cost us, or potentially cost us, a place in the autos? Was Nevitt a Bonner signing, not a Harris signing, hence the low game time? Do you think a better striker would have won us the game yesterday and Thursday? Well, I think we know the answer to that last one. But yeah, January window potentially costing us automatic promotion, or possibly even worse, promotion via the playoffs. Is that where you're thinking at the moment? I think Neil Harris has said judge the recruitment at the end of the season, which we're getting close to, obviously. But yeah, it feels like the fear is creeping in that January is going to cost us.
Yeah, I think that's the fair way to answer, isn't it? Is that you know the answer to that question you'll know. Hopefully, you'll know on the 2nd of May, and if not, then hopefully over the bank holiday weekend at the end of May. Um, but yeah, I think certainly at the moment, and just speaking just purely in terms of the most recent things that have happened, which is obviously the Swindon game and the Cheltenham game. Obviously, it's all a bit of ifs and buts and guessing to some extent, but I don't find it too hard a stretch to say that if you had Paul Mullin in that team, we come out of that weekend with 6 points. We probably won 2 games pretty comfortably. Whereas the reality is with strikers available to you who can either not play the whole game or start or be trusted to start, or just aren't rated enough and just can't deliver enough, you come out of it with 2 points. So there's just one weekend, and there's the difference of it. So yeah, you can say that easily. I mean, I don't really want to get into the Harris Bonner signing thing, because I don't in any way believe that any player would come to this club if Harris wasn't totally okay with it, or at least mostly okay with it. And you have to remember, like at the point that Nevitt signed, like we just needed bodies. Like we just needed bodies. I think really it's the fact that we didn't get another one in. I think the gamble is not so much on was Nevitt the right signing, it was the gamble on Kouassi the right thing to do, because I think we were like, Kouassi's nearly back. And look, we said as much. Like we said, look, when Kouassi gets back in, he'll be like a new signing. Obviously, what's happened is that he's just broken down again. As you say, a pretty needless cameo against Gillingham. You can also make the argument that if he pulls up against Gillingham after what was it, like 10, 15 minutes of playing, then probably he wasn't one to be relied on anyway, because his fitness levels probably weren't quite right. And that was only what 2 or 3 weeks ago now. So we wouldn't be talking a market improvement in that time, I wouldn't have thought. So yeah, I think ultimately it'll be judged on results, won't it? If we find ourselves in the top 3 coming into the season, January, Schmanuary. But if we're not and we're in the playoffs, then it's certainly open discussion.
Continuing our second half analysis, Tom, let's talk about the substitutions, because we've hinted or touched on Neil Harris's performance on Monday. I think this is the good opportunity to deep dive into that a little bit more. Couple of sets of subs, the first of which was Lavery and Hoddle on. And what did he do? He hooked Apparay and can you remember who else he brought off? It was Ben Knight. Of course it was Ben Knight, because we had a question from George about that. What did you think of that double substitution at the time, Tom?
I thought taking Ben Knight off was really, really, really weird. Um, I don't
Well,
understand.
I was gonna ask you George's question as a follow up, but as you've said that, let me get it in here now. MK, Swindon, and Cheltenham. Ben Knight is subbed late on, and we concede. Salford, he stays on, we win. He's our best player and possibly one of the most skillful players in League Two. It must lift the opposition when they see him go off.
Yeah,
Is, is that where your thinking is as well?
I think Lavery for Apre was a pretty obvious sub. I will say though, it's very noticeable that as soon as Lavery comes onto the pitch, the entire way that we play just shifts to just let's absolutely rocket this ball forward as fast as we can.
Yeah.
I don't know, like it like so much so that it can't just be a coincidence if I was just like, running out of ideas late on in games. It must be a tactical thing to be like, this is how we actually want to play to Lavery. And I wonder whether part of it is like because he's so quick and because he's so dangerous basically going forward. Are we trying to like catch the opposition out a little bit? If you can
Yeah.
get him in behind, does that give us the best chance rather than, are we more likely to score a goal by maybe him chasing down a lost cause and finding himself through on goal or something than we are to like create a really good chance through our own play basically and through our own sort of cunning, I suppose. And maybe that's fair, but it doesn't look good. I'll tell you that much. Hoddle for Night is weird. I thought Pelly Ruddock was extremely fortunate to see out, well, not the whole game, so obviously he comes off an Nevitt right at the end, but most of the game. I thought we had a pretty indifferent afternoon. And what we actually did was move Pelly into the sort of more attacking spot
And that
instead
pressing
of
one,
where
yeah.
Ben Knight was, which I just found bizarre because it's like if you want legs in the engine room, like just like do that. But like what you've done is you've taken off all your attacking quality by that point. I know Kai's still on the pitch and there's one or two others as well, but
Mayo, there's a little bit.
yeah, but even Mayer looked absolutely cooked by the end of the game, to be honest, or by the time that he came off the pitch.
That
So
that
yeah,
that Lavery point you make, it's a really interesting one. That sort of it seems deliberate that we're sort of hitting it long, hoping that he, can run the
it must
channel.
be Jord. It must be. It's such a noticeable shift, and it's so noticeable that every time that Lavery comes on, like we just go so direct. And look, I might just be noticed or seeing almost what you want to see. Like it might be the same when Apres there, but I don't think it is. And obviously part of this will be as well that Ben Knight goes off at the same time, so it's like you lose a lot of your quality on the ball
Yeah.
by taking Ben Knight off. So that's your other
What
option is
what
to go a
what
bit more direct.
what I was going to say is, if that's the tactic, then why bring Lavery on his own? Why not stick Nevitt up there as a lump? I know he's not particularly useful, but at least he is a presence and play the two. You could even make an argument to say, well, actually, late in the game, the pressing style of play that Apre does, would he be better coming on as a second striker with Lavery and hooking, Nevitt off? Like you, I don't think we'll see that change for Notts County on Saturday, but I'd certainly like to see how that could plan out. So yeah, we're in agreement. The first two subs were questionable. Second set, then we've had a question from Mark. Dissect the tactical decision to pull off Mayer and Knight to bring on a 37-year-old defender who hasn't played for months. I have a little bit more sympathy for those later changes, specifically Morrison coming on, and my sympathy, Tom, is Cheltenham were going long. They had the lumps on the pitch. They were hitting it forward more, so it kind of made sense to sort of tally it up a bit. But I feel like the first set of subs were wrong, and that's allowed Cheltenham to be able to play that style. What's your take on that?
I think this is an absolutely criminal substitution. I think it's we've we've pretty much roundly praised almost everything that Neil Harris has done since he came back to the football club, and rightly so. Um, and there's been plenty of examples where his substitutions have won us games.
Hmm.
And obviously his in-game management has been good and proactive and obviously exactly what you wanted to see. This smacked of a manager who is struggling with getting games over the line recently. MK is one example where obviously you bring on one centre back, they're obviously put themselves in a situation which leads to a penalty, which leads to us conceding, which leads to us dropping points. Swindon happens where he didn't do a whole lot, to be honest, to change things, and arguably that was the right thing to do because we were playing well and we were the better side, and if anyone looked more likely to score, it would have been us, and that's fine. To me, this just had all the hallmarks of a manager who's just got that Swindon moment in the back of his head, and he's thinking, just got to do something here. Just got to
Yeah.
do something. He's looked behind him. Morrison's there, and he's gone, well, let's just get him on. And I don't think there would have been too much more to it than that. But there's a couple of things it does. I mean, look, one, like you said, that Cheltenham are sort of putting a bit of pressure on and going long, and there's a lot of balls coming in. I actually disagree. I don't really think they're offering much at all. I don't think there was much direct threat to us. Like to
Certainly no shots.
no. Well, there you go. I thought it was fine. I'm not just saying that now. I thought at the time we were doing okay. Didn't feel nice in the ground. Of course, it didn't, because it's the clock's sort of rolling up towards that 90-minute mark, and you're one goal up, and everyone knows that when your team's one goal up and the clock's ticking down, that's a nervy moment. Of course, it is. But so there's that. I think in terms of what the game was asking for, I don't think it was asking for Morrison to come on from our side anyway. And then there's what it does to almost like the message that it sends to the rest of the players, to our players and to theirs a little bit, to be honest. And it's that, right, this is it. We're shutting up shop and we're going to try and scramble out of here with 3 points. It's not necessarily the wrong message to send, but you've got to think it invites a bit of pressure. It just invites a bit of Cheltenham going, right, so this game now essentially becomes attack versus defence. Maybe Cambridge nicks up from the break, but probably it's going to now be Cambridge bunkering down and just trying to get out of this by hook or by crook with the win. And I think this is what just leads to a situation where it just becomes Cheltenham trying to get a point out of a game they didn't deserve, And if we just kept on with our own game to any extent and didn't think too much about the opposition, of course you got to think about the opposition. Like there's obviously two teams on the pitch, famously. But I think he's overthought what happened on Thursday night, and he's overthought what's in front of him at Cheltenham, and it's led to him making a decision which I think has been a huge factor in us dropping points here. And you have to say that's on the manager. My frustration is almost less with who comes on the pitch and the ramifications of that, and more about who doesn't come on the pitch, because Brophy's an unused sub.
Yeah,
and I think that's the one. Like, that's the sub that you make. May is knackered. May is injured. Get someone else out there with a bit of legs, with a bit of energy. That's your substitution. But I think he's just gone too negative, and he's just gone almost too basic. Just like, well, if they're attacking more, we need to defend more, so we need another defender. And that's it, without much thought or regard for what it does to the rest of the team, without much thought or regard to what it does to our shape, and certainly what it does to the kind of mentality of how you're approaching the rest of this football match. And look, what happens is what happens. And if you want to be totally fair about it, you can quite easily say, well, Cheltenham didn't create much of note once Morrison came on, so arguably it's not impacted the balance of play too much. But the simple facts are these: you make a bunch of defensive subs, you try and see a game out, and you concede. It doesn't look good for the manager.
No, absolutely. And there's a part of me that can see why he's gone overly defensive, given what's happened only a few nights before. But there's different ways to challenge a team and to play that defensive way. And I think it's a good argument to say you cause Cheltenham more challenges and posing them more questions by, like you say, mixing up our midfield and attacking players, fresh legs on there, make them have to play and compete in their own half, and not just have an easy pass to get to the halfway line and see if they can launch it forward to someone. Speaking of equalisers, Tom, Bromley 1-1 now, mate. This comes at a bad time as we're about to start talking about the equaliser on Monday.
When it rains, it pours, huh?
Yeah. So, yeah, let's wrap up the pod by talking about Jake Eastwood and the Cheltenham goal. We have had a question from Lee, who simply asks, why didn't he just punch it? Talk me through the goal at the time in the away end, and then from seeing it back in the highlights, because I in real time watching via Frankfurt didn't see the clamour for it to be disallowed. I thought, that would be soft, but I've since seen a replay from the Cambridge away end, and also from the Cheltenham sort of behind their goal where they're sort of doing their equivalent to the amber angle, and it does look questionable. So yeah, talk me through how it felt for you at the time, and then a little bit after you watched it back in the highlights. Was it always was it ever in doubt for you?
We thought for ages that it had been disallowed.
Right, the ref has stitched us up because I don't know if you clocked this, but he sort of runs towards where the foul supposedly happened, and you think, oh, he's gone there to give a free kick or whatever. So yeah, the ref has done us there.
Yeah, because it really did like everything sort of stopped, and then this. Oh no, yeah, we just heading back to the centre circle. Thanks. It's also a really hard one to look back at on the highlights because, unfortunately, one of the great things about spring, of course, is that it gets really sunny and really warm and really nice, and it leads to really nice bank holidays in the southwest of England. What makes it really difficult though is on the highlights, as the cross comes in, the camera hasn't quite readjusted to exactly what happens. So like it's like there's like a flash and the ball's in the back of the net, and you can't really see what happens in between those two things. But yeah, I think East was just come a long way for a ball that he didn't quite manage to get.
He's so far
Arguably,
out. He's so far out.
arguably,
It's like
well,
penalty spot.
arguably just stay on your line. Just stay on your line. Why don't you let the 37-year-old defender that you just brought on deal with this one instead? Leave it tomorrow. That normally works pretty well. It normally ends with like a bruised lung for Morris, actually, I suppose, if them two are going for the ball. Yeah, it's just a moment of madness, I think. It's also quite impressive that how far out he's in the goal, it ends up going in the goal straight off Eastwood in a way.
Yeah,
Normally,
yeah.
like he just sort of flaps at it, and then it's left there for a striker just to sort of tap into an empty net. But no, it just goes all the way in. And again, like as much as I've been remarkably negative over the last, particularly half an hour or 20 minutes or so since we got into the Cheltenham game. You do have to say this comes from absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
And a lot like the Swindon game, probably if you play that game another 10 times, we probably win at least 9 of them. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. It's obviously intensely frustrating that it's followed exactly the same pattern. And let me tell you, like, there was almost disbelief in the away end, in a way, in the sort of way of like, oh, we've actually done it again. We've actually
Yeah.
done exactly the same thing all over again. Um, yeah, I mean, what can you say? It's a moment of madness for a player who otherwise has been pretty good for us. Um, but yeah, sometimes a bit like Apare, I guess you can argue has been a reasonable servant this season. But when the moment comes, you've just got to deliver. You just got to deliver, and I don't know. Something we did a couple of weeks back. Like I just start comparing a lot of what's happening to the previous promotion of that lockdown team. It just felt like every time that lockdown team was asked a question, it answered it. And it feels like at the moment we're falling some way short on pretty much every occasion that we're asked a serious question. Can you go toe to toe with an MK and get a win against them? Almost, but not quite. Can you go? Can you make the most of your chances against a team like Swindon and get a win there? Almost, but not quite. Can you stand up and be counted when it really matters against Cheltenham away from home? Almost, but not quite. Whereas in that promotion year, it's like even just thinking just so basic in such basic terms as like look at the late goals. Every week, man, it felt like every week in that lockdown year we were scoring a goal late, equalise away, late away at Cheltenham, late winning against Walsall, late winner at Carlisle, etc., etc., etc. And it feels like we've just got the worst possible knack to get into of dropping points needlessly, softly, late on in games at really the worst point of the season to be doing it. And look, this goes away a little bit from the goal, how did it come about, who should have done what, and what could have been done better. But yeah, maybe I've got the rose tinted specs on because I'm sure there was times during that lockdown season where I was tearing my hair out as well. But I have to say,
I
at the
was gonna
moment,
I was gonna say it wasn't all plain sailing, was it? The lockdown promotion.
oh, it was, it
I can
was. I've got,
I,
I've
can-
got,
I can
I've got
I
my
can
hazy days on, mate. I'm thinking Wes Hoolan, I'm thinking Paul Mullen. I'm just happy.
I can think of a fair few defeats, admittedly most of them midweek, Bolton away in a 6-pointer, Cheltenham at home in a 6-pointer. Obviously those 2 games before the Grimsby win. What was that? Harrogate, Stevenage. So there was definitely some wobbles, but you're right about the big differences is the being able to find the goal and especially the late goals. So yeah, it is. Yeah, there is something there, and it's been a question that we've had numerous times this season. Is the lack of goals going to be what costs us? And Steve sent in a question. He says, last minute goals. Is it the player's fault for not being able to see it out, or is it the manager's fault for not being able to set it up to see it out? This seems like a good place to end the pod, Tom. What's your answer to that one?
What a beautiful amalgamation of positivity we've got there. Yeah, look, I think you do have to make the caveat as well. There have been a couple of instances where stoppage time has gone very well for us, and no one was talking about the players' mentality or the in-game management of Neil Harris when Ben Knight was scoring late penalties against Crewe and against Shrewsbury. Although there was quite a lot of criticism for the Shrewsbury game, so that's fair. But yeah, you have to say on the whole, we've routinely not seen games out. Grimsby, MK, Swindon, Chesterfield, Cheltenham. It's 5 games now where like we conceded late goals that have cost us points, and even if you take into account the Crewe and the Shrewsbury games, that's a net negative of 6 points, which again puts you in second spot, 1 point off Bromley. Currently 1 point off Bromley as it stands. Probably will be by the time this comes out as well. Where probably you could have the job all but done. So yeah, I think there's obviously a bit of everything that goes into it. I think at this point in the season, I'm more inclined to think it's just pressure and arses twitching a little bit more than maybe they would do in the colder months. But yeah, I think for sure, I think at Cheltenham, I put a large proportion of the blame at the manager's door. To be honest, that's not something that I've done at all this season. Really, I think I've been pretty much overwhelmingly positive on most of the things that Neil Harris has done. But I thought, I thought his subs against Cheltenham smacked of a manager who was overthinking things and not really sure of himself, not really sure of the best way to go out and see out that football match. And on the players, that you can't get away from the fact it's poor execution in both instances. And the reality is, it's something that Matt Caswell says all the time. These things are rarely down to one moment, to one player, to one individual. It's more often than not, it's a real combination of a number of factors. That's pretty much what it is. But unfortunately, those factors have combined. It's given us a really a very, very, very intensely frustrating Easter period. But the positives are we get to do it all over again in a few days, Jord. So look forward to that.
So 2 stoppage time equalisers conceded. As bank holiday weekend hangovers go, Tom, this one's pretty stinking, right?
Yeah, pretty stinking. A sod in disgrace. All
Go
that
get the
good stuff.
Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah, look, it's a character building process, isn't it? Not just not just the whole lower league thing, but like these promotion chases, they're supposed to be enjoyable. This is the thing I can't quite get away from. You're supposed to enjoy this. Like this should be the best thing. It's spring, it's April, sun's out, we're enjoying it. There's not long of the season left. We're riding high, we're doing well, and yet I can't wait for it to fucking end. To be honest.
I found it really interesting. The Cheltenham game on Monday, for the first half, I had the Cheltenham commentary on, and they were talking a lot about just sports that we don't normally have discussed on BBC Cambridgeshire. Horse racing was in there and whatnot. But the big one that they kept talking about was cricket, and I just thought, yeah, let's just get the cricket season on, Tom.
Is that what we need after the winter?
Absolutely, yeah. Bit T20.
Well, to be fair, we do have a World Cup to look forward to, unless your man in the White House has other ideas about it. But yeah, there's plenty more disappointment to be found. The good thing is, in the immediate instance, you get to tune into us and listen to us, almost tearing each other apart and tearing ourselves apart, turning ourselves inside out with frustration and turmoil and anguish about how things are going. But look, despite everything, despite what we've said, just got to try and keep the faith somehow. If we beat Notts County on Saturday, and I find myself doing this a lot, really, where like you take one bit of disappointment and you just move on to the next game. Well, if we win that, it'll all be fine. But seriously, if we go and beat Notts County, what you want to see now more than anything is that statement home win. We sort of had it against Gillingham, but I think we will accept that Gillingham are kind of a leveler team where it doesn't really count quite as much. You go and slap Notts County, then come back to me and ask about positivity, then ask me about bullishness, then talk to me about how I'm feeling, Jord, because I'll be feeling top of the world. But
well, this is it. Beat Notts County, beat Bromley, and the talk is surely back of the title, not the playoffs. Anyway, Tom, can I just say before we end, we've done over an hour of recording, and we've not mentioned the fact that Gary Monk won 6 points over the Easter weekend. So how about that? How about that for perspective?
Does that make Gary Monk Jesus? And does that make Neil Harris Judas? Is that how this Bible thing works? It's not the same, is it? Not it's not the same. Also, arguably, the way to be Jesus over Easter weekend is to lose on the Friday and then win on the Monday, presumably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 points makes you more of a, you know, more of a. It's been a long pod, mate. It's been a long pod, a long day.
So basically doing
know what I mean?
doing neither of those is what the atheist approach. I don't know. It's getting a little bit weird now.
Yeah. Well, look, we're gonna have to do it all again. We will do it all again. It'll be good to have people with us. The Old Spring, coconut tier.
I was going to say, do you know
all that stuff?
Do you know what we should do to talk about the Bible? Just go find a nice pub somewhere and enjoy some discounted pints. As Tom mentions, the Old Spring, our sponsors this season. Right, yeah, of course. I mean, that's a good place to wrap it up, Tom. And yeah, let's go watch that second half of Bromley at Shrewsbury. If you're a Coconut Tier member, join Tom and I on the live stream. We're going to do the commentary. Of course we're not. But yes, there's a lot of pods this week. Swindon and I will be back with the Friday preview pod, possibly the biggest preview pod there's been. And then we'll be back on Monday with the review. I really hope we're talking about a positive result. But Tom, I hope this session has helped.
Yeah, it's a good first session. I've a sorry nagging feeling there might be a few more therapy sessions to go yet, Jord. This is really reminiscent of the sort of early days of the pod, really, where it used to be me and you coming and slagging off Colin Calderwood for an hour and like bemoaning just everything about the football club. So look, it could be worse. Obviously, it could be a bit better, but it could be a hell of a lot worse.
We've mentioned 4 ex-managers today. We've had Monk, Calderwood, Harris, technically, because he was formerly an ex. Bonner's got a mention. End the pod by randomly just slagging off an ex-manager. That will help.
Yeah, fuck off, Sean Harris.